Hello, my name is Casey Haynes, and today I'm going to be covering the computational text analysis tool, TextBlob, for big data, culture, and society. So first, a roadmap, or where we're going to go with this presentation. First, I'll present my thesis, then I'll describe what TextBlob is, then I'll move into its applications, then we'll do a quick demo, and then I'll wrap up with the conclusion. So the big idea is this. TextBlob makes using NLTK easier and has more functionality than NLTK. So any project that can be done using NLTK can be simplified or extended using TextBlob. So some importance and background of the tool is this. It provides more information out of the gate, so it's less steps for you, the programmer, to remember. Extracting the information needed from a corpus becomes a little bit simpler for you in that way. And then analysis can further be integrated using sentiment analysis or WordNet, which is an online lexical database. Uh, NLTK can also do these things, but normally we would have to import more modules from NLTK and we would have to move stuff between data structures. You avoid that using TextBlob. So now a description of the tool. TextBlob is a Python library, so you install it using your package manager. If you're running Anaconda, this will be through issuing the command conda install TextBlob in the Anaconda terminal. Alternatively, if you're running vanilla Python, you can run pip install TextBlob in whatever environment you have set up. So TextBlob basically acts as a wrapper for NLTK and translates commands. It can also integrate other functionality through tools like WordNet, as I mentioned. At the end of the day, it really just simplifies NLTK commands. It reduces the amount of commands you have to run, and it reduces the amount of times you have to move data from structure to structure. So this is how it's different from NLTK. Basically, TextBlob objects, this would be a piece of NLTK text in NLTK, have more built-in attributes and methods. So if you want the parts of speech of an object, you run the .tags attribute on it. If you want the nouns phrases attribute, you run the .nouns phrases attribute. This avoids having to run things like the POS underscore tag function on NLTK text objects and then moving them into a separate data structure. With this, you just invoke another attribute. It's built in. This can also be done with tokenization using the .sentences attribute and the .words attribute. So some additional functionality that NLTK has, but you have to import different modules. Sentiment analysis is one, which is a natural language processing technique that aims to determine if the sentiment of some piece of text is negative, neutral, or positive. This is done by invoking the .sentiment attribute. And then there's also WordNet, which is an online lexical database. You can get the definition of a word using the .definition. You can run a spell check using .spellcheck, which gets a likely match for the correctly spelled word. And then you can actually correct that word in place using the .correct attribute. Additionally, TextBlob objects act like Python lists or strings. So if you want the first 11 characters from some piece of text, you run 0:10, just like you would on a Python string. Additionally, there's also the upper and lower methods, which convert to upper and lower case respectively. And then there's also the n-gram, so you can get sets of contiguous words of size n being the size that you, the programmer, provide. Next, we'll move into some applications. Some current applications of TextBlob are in sentiment analysis, spelling correction, and any text processing that NLTK itself is capable of. One possible future application would be you could use it to get words that typically surround other words and use that to draw some correlation between phrases and what they're often used for and when they're used. Another possible future application would be with the WordNet integration. This could be good for projects like Alec Benson talked about when he talked about the web spiders last week. It can be good for projects that pull from rough data sets like blogs and other unpolished sources, because you can correct the spellings of words in place. So if you want to run the frequency of a given word, you can avoid, statistical errors where it's not picking up a misspelled word. So now we'll move into a quick demo. So I've screenshotted a few things I was running in my Python IDE. So this is how you get everything you need for TextBlob. You run from TextBlob, import TextBlob in Python. And then this first TextBlob object I have here is named wiki. This is the sentence. Python is a high-level general-purpose programming language. If you want the tags on that sentence, you just run the .tags attribute. If you want the noun phrases, you run the .noun_phrases attribute. So instead of invoking a separate function, everything is built into the TextBlob object. This is an example of sentiment analysis. So this is a different TextBlob object that I have now named testimonial, and it specifically includes words like amazing and all hail. So this is a really, really good recommendation for the cybersecurity news site Krebs on Security. And if you want the sentiment of that particular TextBlob object, all you need to do is run .sentiment. You don't have to import another module, and you don't have to run another function, and you don't have to move it all into a different data type. So we can see here that it gives us a sentiment score, and then it also gives us the subjectivity of that score. So basically how sure it is that it got it right. And then finally, just like in NLTK, you can also run this on text files in your current directory, or any directory for that matter. You use the Python file IO options, and you open a file using this command, the open command, and then you move that all into a string by invoking the Python read method. And then you can convert that to a text blob by just running text blob and then parenthesis, and then you put your string in the middle. And then you can run everything like we just did on basically a predefined piece of text. So finally, our conclusion. This is what we've covered. We've covered how to install TextBlob, how we can use TextBlob to streamline data processing, and how we can do sentiment analysis without importing more modules. We also explored how we can use other integrations like WordNet to extend the power available over what's available if you just run import NLTK in NLTK. So this is a restatement of my thesis. Based on this information, we've determined that TextBlob makes using NLTK easier, and it has more functionality than NLTK. So any project that can be done using NLTK can be simplified or extended using TextBlob. And at the end of the day, it does the same thing pretty much, but it just makes the programmer's life a little bit easier. You don't have to remember the different function names, and you don't have to remember what modules to import. You just import TextBlob, and then you can run your attributes and methods. And then finally, here are my references and some resources, just in case you want to stop on this slide. And you've got a very good quick start guide here, and then another guide that kind of goes into using TextBlob and just how you can use it in your projects. Thank you very much for your attention. That concludes my presentation.